Welcome back to OIS Podcast, episode 250. For this milestone episode, we are sharing a discussion from the recent OIS European Showcase, where we featured Tim Clover, the CEO of Rayner. Tim spoke with Joe Sullivan from Emmetropes about the company's deep history in ophthalmology, as well as their future plans for innovation. Let's listen in.
There's a particular company, Rayner, with a long history in ophthalmology that in many ways is the embodiment of European innovation journey in ophthalmology. So I'm happy to introduce Tim Clover, the CEO of Rayner, to talk about the company's impressive history, legacy, and their plans for future innovation. So welcome, Tim.
Hi, Joe. It's very nice to be here, and thanks to OIS for the invitation.
Good to see you. Before we jump in and talk about the company and the ophthalmic space as a whole as you see it, just as a way of introduction, tell us a little bit about yourself, your background and how you came to ophthalmology and eventually how you came to Rayner.
Well, I don't think I've ever not been in ophthalmology. I studied mathematics and physics and went into R&D in optics, and then found my way into Allergan, where I was lucky enough to be involved in the AMO spin-off, where I was one of the founders. I also spent some time at Fidelity, focused on investments in eye hospitals and telemedicine. So I was delighted when in 2014 our chairman, Niels de Koning-Smith, asked me to join the board of Rayner as a non-executive director. And then I became CEO 1 year later to lead a transformation plan.
Great. Well, I want to hear a lot about that. I actually have a few questions just about that. But just talking for a second about the company. The company has a long history, of course. How about giving us your pencil sketch of the history of the legacy of Rayner and its relevance in eye care overall in these past, say, 100 plus years since the company was founded?
Well, it's a great history. A lot of people know it, but I'm always surprised by how many people don't know it. So I'll give you the short version. The company started in 1910 with an optician's laboratory in Brighton, and grew to over 200 labs, actually. Then in 1949, a young surgeon called Harold Ridley had been seeing patients who were Spitfire pilots, and they had shards of the cockpit stuck in their eye with no noticeable effect. So he made the mental leap to work with Rayner on creating an artificial lens, which was made out of the same material as the Spitfire cockpit. And then, as everybody knows, went ahead and implanted that, and that became one of the world's first cataract surgeries as we know it. The company continued actually to innovate, making notable firsts, including, I think, the world's first multifocal toric, world's first lens implanted in the sulcus. It was the first lens ever approved by the FDA. So a great history of innovation and science. When I came to the more recent version of Rayner in 2014, however, it was sadly struggling a little bit. The optician's lab business was, I think, dying, probably by virtue of the internet and the emergence of corporate chains. That was starving the company of cash, and therefore there was no R&D, no product development program. I don't think there'd been a new product for probably 10 years. And the factory was at full capacity. So it was really in need of that transformation plan that we were hired to deliver.
Ideal circumstances, huh? To come into a spot.
I've never been somebody that just wants to grow market share by 0.5 percentage points. It was a fantastic project.
Well, it sounds like you had just the ideal conditions to be able to roll up the sleeves and make a difference. So tell us a little bit about, since that time, what the journey's been like since 2014 when you joined the company. You just described more or less how you found the company. What would you highlight in terms of big events since then, or changes of focus or changes of direction since you joined the company 6 years ago?
Yeah, well, I think everybody listening to this will know that innovation is at the heart of success in ophthalmology. So we took the difficult decision to sell the optician's laboratory business, and in fact used the money that we made from that to invest in a really state-of-the-art, high-tech manufacturing R&D and education center. As anybody knows that's had to do that within their career, that's only half the story, because then you have to set about getting it approved by the FDA, the CFDA, the KFDA, MDSAP. The list is just goes on forever. But we did a great thing. We made a really big bet. So today that facility is only 30% utilized, and hopefully affords years and years of growth to come. The other really big thing we had to do is clearly look at R&D, and I suppose that the challenge for a company like Rayner, as it will be for many companies out there, is how do you compete with Alcon? And we knew we had to do something more creative to get an edge, and so we set about constructing a R&D collaborative network spanning the globe. So today we have 15 PhDs and engineers working in central R&D, but we probably have over 150 partners in universities, through surgeons, through collaborative organizations that we work with, all working on Rayner R&D projects. We supplemented that with 7 acquisitions of either new technology or products, or in some instances, companies. And that's enabled us to launch 13 products in the last 4 years. I think today our product range matches and exceeds anybody's in the market, personally. And that in turn has led to a period of rapid growth for the company. And I probably wouldn't be doing my job if I didn't say a sort of huge thank you to not only the management team, but also to the team behind, because any company that's growing like that, to be able to scale up a factory, to scale up QMS systems, customer services systems, IT, all of these things takes a tremendous effort. So it's been a real big team success.
I can imagine the intensity to pull that much activity together, starting from where you were at, must have been quite intense, huh? Getting a lot of sleep at night, Tim?
Well, actually, one of the characteristics was Rayner was that it was a family-owned business at one point, and shareholders had enjoyed 70 years of uninterrupted dividends. So probably the night with least sleep was the night I stood up at the AGM and told them that the dividend was now going to be reinvested in science and marketing and technology and
So before going into, jumping in kind of deeply into your aspirations for Rayner's future, we all know that any plans that we make have to unfold in a particular market, and in this case, the ophthalmic market. So try, if you will, forgetting for a moment the COVID-19 situation, the special circumstances that are being imposed on all of us as a result of COVID-19. But just trying to push that aside for a moment, what's your view of the prospects for the ophthalmic market currently in the years that are coming ahead? In terms of not so much quantitatively per se, but in terms of innovation in ophthalmology, you're kind of qualify the attractiveness of the market as you see it.
Well, you would expect me to say, I think, the fundamentals just look, fantastic. From a demographic perspective, we all know that the cataract surgery rates in so many substantial countries are lagging those of more developed countries. And I think we certainly expect to see robust growth through my career and beyond. I think in dynamics, we're huge supporters of the development of advanced technology in IOLs, and still when we see the prevalence of premium lenses within the market, we think there's a long way for that to go. I rarely see satisfaction data that isn't significantly above 95%, which is frankly a number Disney would kill to have. And we believe that will be sort of driven by consumer preferences and desires, as well as, I guess, surgeon confidence in the technology as more and more data becomes available. But specifically answering the question around innovation, I think, that's the attraction of ophthalmology for people like me, because it's just such a vibrant source of new ideas. And in my experience, the best ideas come from surgeons. So we continue to expect to see improvements in multifocality, in extended depth of vision. We also expect to see really significant movements around accommodation, which has been quite a large focus for some companies, and indeed is a large focus for Rayner right now. One area where I think it's just to sort of take the other side of that, one area I'm sort of particularly interested in is data. As somebody in my position, I just don't think we get enough data. The industry is driven predominantly by, N equals 50 clinical studies done in rarefied, controlled environments. And one thing we would love to see is the emergence of large-scale outcome data, which is why we've had this big initiative in Ray Pro to try and get 3-year follow-up data on every single lens implanted. I think it's frankly mad that as a cyclist, I can get the richness of data that apps like Strava provide, but for something so important as eye surgery, we're limited by relatively small scale studies.
It's ironic. Yeah, you're right. Just touching on one thing that you mentioned. So, you said that you have a real soft spot, as it were, for surgeons and the interaction that you have with, or you've had with KOLs and with surgeons. Is that part of this extensive network of the R&D? I think you mentioned 150 kind of people. This network, are they having potentiating this interaction with the surgeons then and KOLs to try and tease out ideas and that they may have in terms of innovation?
So I think as a company, sometimes it's useful to say, what role do we play in the market? Right. From my perspective, if you look at a surgeon has a great idea, fantastic idea, a new IOL, it might generate $30 million of sales worldwide. If you take that product to, Alcon, Bausch & Lomb, Zeiss, whoever, that revenue number is absolutely insignificant in the global, revenue line. There's a big R&D machinery which takes it, works it, it comes out or it doesn't. If you look below the level of Rayner, there's a lot of founder-owned companies, and to take that product to market globally would be outside their reach. It would require a huge personal investment from the founder to get it anywhere. So Rayner sits in this, for me, sweet spot where we're sort of big enough to be able to commercialize products on a global scale. We're small enough to care about those kind of levels of revenue. We've got professional management. I'd love to own Rayner, but I own a very small percentage. And we've got access to external capital. So I think Rayner plays this role in the market as being the sort of collaborator of choice for surgeons. And, probably one of the best examples of that, we're just in the middle of a launch at the moment of enhanced monovision product, which was the origins of which were with Professor Graham Barrett. And Graham's worked with us over the past year and more, bringing that product to market. And, we've done that extremely quickly, extremely proficiently. And we obviously hope it'll be a great product.
That's great. I may be repeating a question here. So you've described the market to us, then your view of the overall ophthalmic market for the time being in the years ahead. What role do you see Rayner playing or occupying?
I think that role of being the partner of choice is an absolutely sort of, key role that we can play in this market. The other role I think we would like to play and we should play is related to regulatory. We see this inexorable movement from European regulators towards the FDA, and that I think will lead to slower, more expensive innovation. That's despite a fantastic safety record. So I'm probably not the greatest supporter of that move. I think it will lead to fewer, larger companies. And I think Rayner could play a role as a potential consolidator of companies that perhaps don't have the scale or global presence to compete as effectively in this new, slightly more harsh regulatory environment. So I think those two things are really quite unique and differentiated positions for Rayner within this global market.
So the good news, I'd say, is that, Rayner, you are a historically relevant player in the space, and that the markets actually care about and have high expectations about what you do and what you're planning to do. And by that, I don't mean to apply any pressure on you there, Tim. So what should we be looking for? What should we be expecting from Rayner in the years ahead in terms of pipeline and strategy, to the extent that you can share with us?
I think I mentioned this earlier, but I think some of this comes back to the same question: how do we compete? What are we here for? And I think there's a great danger if companies like us try to do too much, because you end up doing it badly. So we focus only on visual outcomes, and we just try and do that better than anybody else in the market. Visual outcomes for me is about intraocular lenses and eye drops for dry eye. I think the dry eye piece is really quite underserved. Many of you will know that a patient with dry eye, that could account for something like 2 diopters of refraction, which makes somewhat of a mockery of accurate biometry and precision manufacturing. We're proud to have Aeon, which is, I think, the world's only eye drop product with a labeling claim for before and after eye surgery. And we'd like to build that. So I think you'll see more of that coming forwards. By necessity, we are driven to invest and to seek new innovations around multifocality. I mentioned already the enhanced monovision, which is our entry into the extended depth of vision intraocular lens market. And I think that's an area which affords sort of really, great interest and potential benefits for patients. I suspect the gains in those two latter areas will be relatively marginal until we see the emergence of accommodating technology. We've tried to be quite discreet with our accommodating R&D projects. We're in deep collaboration with an Israeli surgeon and company, and we expect to be going into eye with our product next year. So we're excited about that. And then the final thing I think we'd like to do is based around Go Direct. So we're currently in 9 markets directly, and I think as the company grows, and our aspirations are probably to have more personal relationships with surgeons, undertake more clinical studies in new areas, which is much easier when it's your own employees and you're investing directly into those countries. So those are probably the 3 areas I think I'm more focused on.
Okay, great. So, lots of times when we're talking about expansion and, R&D and things, we're referring a lot to the portfolio expansion and things we're developing. You touched on it a little bit. You mentioned, certain other areas and countries. Geographic expansion, I'm sure, is going to play a key role in your plans and aspirations for the future. So talk to us a little bit about the importance of markets, specific markets like, say, the US and China for Rayner.
it's a huge question, and the expense is extraordinary, really. So for us, it's a question of timing and coverage. And I think that time is now for us. So both the USA and China play really big part in our next 5-year plan. We've been doing a lot of work with the FDA, and we were delighted to get the Ray 1 platform approved last year. And for our automated patient-reported outcome system, RayPro was also approved. In February next year, we hope to be launching our enhanced monovision Ray 1 EMV into the US. We also hope to be going into clinic with our trifocal FDA study. So we're sort of looking forward to a number of years of product releases in the US. In China, we expect the launch of our Ray 1 later this year. That will be followed up by a number of other products, including EMV and trifocal, over the coming 4 years. So both markets represent, a huge part of the world ophthalmic market. But I think also, other markets besides afford great opportunities in the future, and I'd single out particularly markets like India.
Let me just switch it up for a minute and talk about what some people refer to as the soft stuff, the people thing. So, as you pursue this aspirational vision, and these are extraordinary objectives you're setting yourselves out to do over the coming years, and as you try to implement these ambitious strategies to achieve that vision, what's your view on the importance of concepts, these soft concepts like leadership, talent management, work with the organization, team building, and things like that? Are you doing anything special in this area?
I think that was probably the most important thing that we did at the beginning. If you take an organization from a period of something like stasis and try and kickstart it and get it growing, you really have to focus on sort of cultural change. We did it, rightly or wrongly, by trying to really instill a sense of strong values. So we chose the values that applied to us, openness, ambition, integrity, respect, and we wrote them, frankly, everywhere. So that on the back of people's access cards, on the walls, on mugs, and we just did everything. And we had this period which was actually quite fun of like celebrating moments when people really displayed those, went above and beyond their expectations. And I think that did a good job of embedding expectations and all of those things in people. Yeah. Now, I think it's probably, we've embedded that culture, and now it moves a little bit more to, I think, how we perform. And we have this thing where it's, we will only win if we can prove we're more intelligent and we're faster than others.
Walk the talk, no?
Yeah, so it's about hiring the right people and making sure that the systems are in place to enable them to flourish. So we have, high performance individuals, they go on mini MBAs, their careers are actively managed. And, the other piece of this, I think, is reward, right? So it's my personal belief that you embed equity as wide as you humanly can. And so we've encouraged everybody at Rayner to buy shares in the company, and we, supplement that with a series of equity programs, which means that, everybody can share in the success.
Literally a proprietary interest. That's interesting.
Yeah.
That's great. So finally, let's just jump ahead to the year 2025. We're now sitting here, you and I, talking through the screen in the last quarter of 2025, and we're looking at kind of a fulfilling portrait of Rayner over these past, say, 5 years. And as the CEO, who's been overseeing this exciting period in this illustrious company with its illustrious history, as you look at that, what are the things that you're most proud of as you look at this 2025 portrait of Rayner?
I think for myself and the management team, and I'd certainly like to think everybody in the company, there's so much energy, passion, and enthusiasm about putting Rayner. You can't say this without sounding a bit arrogant, but putting Rayner sort of back where it should rightly be, as a company that manufactured the world's first IOL. I mean, we'd really, really like to see this company, back on the top of the market, specifically in the areas around IOLs. And to me, that means doing great science, creating great jobs for people, and never ever forgetting the fact that last year, Joe, we manufactured just over 1 million IOLs, and that's 1 million patients who had their sight restored. And you can never forget that, and what a great place to be, because there's nothing really quite comes close to it. So it's always about pulling it back to the patient and understanding the value of what you do. In terms of the most proud thing, it's probably a little strange, because when we decided, I don't know if you've ever been through it yourself, but you kind of go, right, we're going to build a big factory, and there are lots of people will tell you where to build that factory. And most of them basically say, if you don't build it here, you're an idiot. Low price, great cheap workforce. I mean, the story is the same always. And
mostly feeling like an idiot, right?
Yeah, so I'd like to think we kind of stuck two fingers up at everybody that said, you can't build a high-tech, science-driven, R&D orientated manufacturing center in Western Europe and make a great success of it. So I'm kind of proud that we stuck to our values and did that.
Hey, well, I'm going to wrap it up here. This has been a great conversation, Tim. Thanks so much for joining, for sharing your vision with us for Rayner. It's an exciting story to watch. As I said at one point in our questions, where we'll all be watching. There's a level of expectation which is, I think, healthy. So thanks so much. Best of luck with it, and we will definitely look forward to another chance to have an interaction and see how things are going.
It's been a real pleasure, Joe, and I hope we can do it in person next time.
Yes, that would be great. That 2025 vision thing will have to be face to face, not on this, not over.
I couldn't agree more. Hate Zoom.
Thanks a lot, Tim. Take care.
Bye.
Bye.
We hope you enjoyed learning more about Tim Clover and Rayner. Stay tuned for more discussions like these with industry leaders, and be sure to sign up for our upcoming Glaucoma Innovation Showcase on October 15th and the Drug Delivery Showcase on November 5th. Visit OIS.net for a complimentary registration today.